My name is Ethan Rowe, age 39, and I run the volunteer fire department in Seaview, Washington. It's a tiny coastal town, fewer than 500 souls, but we band together like family. When I'm not fighting blazes or training new recruits, I'm renovating our century-old firehouse, tinkering with its ancient boiler, polishing turnout gear, making sure we're ready for whatever the Pacific Northwest throws our way. My wife, Sara, is the town librarian. Sweet as salt air, she greets every patron with a soft smile, knows half the town's secrets by heart, and hosts weekly book clubs in that dusty old building by the harbor. We married after we'd been dating for a million floods, as she likes to joke, and we fell into a comfortable routine. Coffee at dawn, fire calls by day, library after lunch, quiet dinners on our porch overlooking the sound. For 7 years, I thought we had it all. It started small. One evening in late October, I swung by the library after my shift. Sara wasn't at her desk. The front door was locked. I peeked in through the glass, light on in the back, the circulation desk empty, but her laptop open with half-read email. I felt that familiar churn in my gut, learned on call after call, something's off. A subject line caught my eye, midnight rendezvous? I froze. The sender was Mayor Jacob Ellis, the same young man we'd all cheered when he beat the incumbent last spring. Charming, ambitious, a favorite of local press. The message preview read, "Can't wait to see you tonight. After hours, the library is ours." I walked away without looking further. The night air was sharp. My heart hammered so loud I could hear it over the waves. Over the next week, Sara's routine shifted. She started closing the library at 5:30 instead of 6, claiming she was swamped with returns. She took her laptop home. Phone always face down at the dinner table. She'd go out after meeting a donor, but her stories felt rehearsed, too neat. I tried to trust her. I wanted to trust her. One night, after we'd gone to bed, I lay awake, listening to her side of the bed stay stubbornly cool. I pulled out my phone, against everything I'd ever believed, and pinged my longtime friend Lee, who runs the local radio station as a side gig. Lee's also a tech whiz, old enough to remember dial-up but savvy enough to rig your Wi-Fi and not charge you. I asked for a favor, quietly as I could. "Can you pull metadata from her email logs? I think she's using the town servers for something personal." He answered at 3 a.m. "I'll see what I can do. Keep the faith." The next night, I worked a full 24-hour shift. Near dawn, I ducked into the bay, pulled on my gear for a kitchen fire call. While the crew doused the embers, I slipped back to Lee's little studio, half asleep. He handed me a printout, timestamps, IP logs showing Sara's library account pinging Jacob's private address at midnight, multiple nights a week for the past 2 months. I felt a slow burn of betrayal. Lee looked at me with sympathy. "I'm sorry, man. You got enough proof." I nodded. "I need more." I needed everything, their texts, calls, photos, anything that would leave no doubt. Over the next 10 days, I quieted the station, extra volunteers covering, no questions asked. I installed an old SKS recorder I kept for training in the library's back office under the circulation desk. I set up a small hidden camera in Sara's car, just the night runs. I synced her laptop when she left it open. Everything to build my dossier. And every night, I heard them, Sara's soft laugh, Jacob's low voice, promises about new beginnings and your escape. Each confession felt like a match dropped in my chest. Then I got the final piece. A photo in my inbox, Sara and Jacob arm in arm on the library roof under the full moon, city lights glittering below, her head on his shoulder, a flash from her phone. The timestamp read 1:07 a.m. last Friday, right when I was supposed to be on call. No question now. This was murder by betrayal. I shut the laptop. I exhaled hard. Tonight is the town's harvest festival held on the library lawn, music, pumpkins, the mayor's speech at 9 p.m. Sara and Jacob will be there, front row. The whole county in attendance. My final act begins when the mayor steps up to the mic. He'll expect cheers, he'll expect Sara smiling by his side. What he won't expect is the projector Lee and I smuggled into the librarian's storeroom. When the screen lights up behind him, images will flash, midnight texts, audio of their laughter in my bed, the rooftop embrace, all time-stamped, undeniable. For a moment, the mayor's triumphant address will become his own public confession. And Sara, my wife, will stand there in front of her precious town, her lie laid bare under the lantern glow. No shouts. No violence. Just truth in high definition. That's my revenge. Harvest Festival night arrived under a harvest moon. The library lawn was festooned with lanterns and hay bales. Kids roamed in pumpkin costumes. The scent of cider and wood smoke curled through the air. I could feel the hum of excitement until I remembered why I was here. I parked by the staff entrance and shouldered the projector bag. Lee was waiting in the storeroom, a narrow space stacked with surplus chairs and forgotten pamphlets. He nodded, handed me the remote disguised as a clicker, and whispered 9:35. Cue it then. I slipped out through the side door just as Mayor Ellis mounted the small wooden stage, framed by cornstalks. Sara appeared beside him, glowing in a harvest orange dress, her hand lightly resting on his elbow. Applause rippled through the crowd. My chest tightened. This was the moment they thought would cement their happy news, Mayor Grant announcing the library's new expansion, with Sara as honorary chair. Behind his confident grin, I heard my heartbeat as a slow drum. I walked to the back, found a clear sight line to the white festival screen. Lee stood by the power box. He nodded. I clicked the first button and ducked back. Mayor Ellis began, "Thanks to all of you." Then the projector flickered on behind him. The bright rectangle cut through the lantern light. He paused, squinted as the first slide appeared in crisp black text. October 12th, 11:42 p.m. Jacob to Sara, "Can't wait to see you after hours. The library is ours." Sara gasped, stumbling back. The mayor looked around, confused. The second slide, a still of Sara's car pulling into the mayor's private garage, timestamped November 3rd, 1:07 a.m. Murmurs chased each other through the audience as people turned, straining to see. Lee clicked again. Audio crackled through the portable speakers, Sara's voice from the bedroom recorder, soft laughter. "He thinks I'm going home tonight. This is just for fun." A ripple of horror spread. Mayor Ellis turned pale, his speech forgotten. Families held children close, teachers blinked in disbelief. Next, a photo of Sara and Jacob on the roof, her dress caught by moonlight, his hand at her waist, timestamped October 29th. My own betrayal rendered in raw pixels. I felt no triumph. Just a calm certainty this was their truth and the world would now see it. The final slide read, "A library's walls hold countless stories. It's time to add one more." Darkness fell as Lee hit off. For a heartbeat, nothing moved. Then chaos erupted. Sara's scream cut through the lantern glow. Mayor Ellis dashed backstage, tripping over a hay bale. Guests sprang to their feet, some recording with phones, others rushing to confront. I stepped forward from the shadows. Heart steady, I walked onto the lawn. Heads turned, conversation stuttered to silence. Sara's eyes locked on mine, her shock, her shame, all reflected in that brutal glare. I raised my voice over the tumult. "I'm Ethan Rowe, you all know me from fire calls. This is their story." A stunned hush. Then questions in a dozen voices. But I didn't answer. I turned away, not looking back at her crumpled figure in the lantern light. Under that harvest moon, as the festival fell apart around me, I felt something shift inside, the weight of betrayal lifting. Behind me, Lee whispered, "You okay?" I nodded once. "I'm free." And with that, I walked into the night, leaving their lies scattered in the lantern-lit debris of a ruined celebration. I didn't sleep much after the harvest festival. The next morning, Seaview buzzed like a fire alarm. Rumors raced through town, the mayor's disgrace, the library board's emergency meeting, Sara's hasty disappearance. By noon, 2 local blogs had picked up amateur footage of the projection, looping it on repeat. Nobody could look away. I made breakfast quietly at home, eggs and toast. Each sizzle in the pan felt like a countdown. I turned off my phone's news alerts. I didn't need to see their outrage or my name splashed across comment threads. Instead, I slipped into my turnout gear and headed to Station 42. At the firehouse, the guys were waiting. Captain Morales, grizzled and steady, clapped me on the shoulder. "Heard about last night," he said softly. "You okay?" I shrugged out of my jacket. "Better than ever." He nodded. "Whatever you need, we've got you." I gripped the hood of my bunker coat. Let's get the day started. Over the next 48 hours, the fallout was relentless. Library board, Sara was officially suspended pending investigation. Volunteers reported her desk cleared, her favorite coffee mug gone. The circulation desk wore a bleak emptiness that whispered of betrayal. Mayor's office, Jacob Grant issued a tepid public apology, half blame on personal failings. His approval ratings cratered overnight. 2 council members called for his resignation. Town gossip, every corner groaned under the weight of their story. Parents whispered in the school parking lot. Business owners shook their heads over coffee. The Harvest Festival pumpkins decomposed in silent rows, a rotten echo of the celebration that collapsed beneath their lies. Meanwhile, I stuck to routine. We answered a minor brush fire on the outskirts, nothing serious but enough to remind me why I chose this life: service, clarity, action. I climbed the ladder, doused the embers, felt the rush of water on hot wood and ash. Every drop washed away a bit of the bitterness inside me. Back at Station 42, I turned my attention to the firehouse renovation. The old boiler room needed new piping, the hose tower's ladder rungs had rusted through. I spent my evenings welding, sanding, restoring old equipment. Each spark in the dark shop felt reassuring, the kind of honest heat that builds, not destroys. Sarah's calls and texts came in waves. "Ethan, please let's talk. I can explain everything. I miss you. We can fix this. I'm so sorry. Don't let them win." I read them once, then archived them. No response. I'd already given them their stage. Now I needed my silence. On day 3, I took a walk past the library at dusk. The windows were boarded. A sign read, "Closed to renovations." Inside, the garden she'd planted in spring was overgrown. The memory of her tending those flower beds felt like a fresh burn. I didn't linger. My heart was set on bigger things than watching her world collapse. That weekend, I hosted an informal cookout at the firehouse for all volunteers, past and present. We fired up the grill, cracked open beers, laughed at old training mishaps. No talk of scandal. Just camaraderie. As the sun dipped behind the spruce trees, Captain Morales raised his mug. To Ethan, knowing when to fight fire and when to let the truth burn out in its own time. The crew cheered. I felt warmth that had nothing to do with charred wood or oxyacetylene welds. Monday morning arrived with clarity. I filed the final documents for divorce, absolute, irrevocable. My lawyer's email notification pinged in my inbox. Decree finalized, property settled, no alimony. I shut the laptop and exhaled. That night I returned to the firehouse. I stood in the empty bay looking at my tools and gear hanging in neat rows. Their silhouettes against the fluorescent lights felt like old friends welcoming me back. I whispered to the empty room, "Thank you." Because in all this I discovered something important. Revenge isn't a blaze you feed. It's a controlled burn, cutting out the dead wood so new growth can thrive. I drove home under a sky the color of embers, windows down, salt air on my face. For the first time in months, the weight in my chest was gone.
Sorry to interrupt your viewing experience, but we really need your support, namely a subscription to the channel, which can make it possible to hire a professional voice actor and make the best content for you.
My name remained untarnished by their lies. My life solid, steady, honest, stretched ahead, free of their smoke and mirrors. And as I unlocked my door, I knew the truest revenge had already done its work. I was no longer the man they tried to deceive. I was the man who'd finally seen the truth and stepped into the light. 2 weeks after the Harvest Festival, an official-looking envelope arrived from the Seaview Public Library Board. They'd called an emergency meeting to address community concerns. My name was on the guest list, one of only a handful invited to speak. I read the notice at the firehouse, the fluorescent lights humming overhead as I tuned the station radios. My gut tightened, but I'd been ready for this. I slipped the notice into my pocket and drove home, where my living room held the final piece of my evidence, the midnight audio recording of Sara laughing with Mayor Grant. That night I copied the file onto a USB stick and printed transcripts, redacting nothing. I laid everything out on the kitchen table, emails, texts, photos, the printed letter she wrote to me. My hands didn't shake. My mind was calm. The boardroom was a tiny windowless office above the library. The old oak table seated 10 people, the board chair, trustees, the county grants officer, and 2 community representatives. Sara sat at the head, flanked by her lawyer, a young woman in a tailored suit, and the board chair's polite gaze. The room smelled of mildew and diluted coffee. I slipped in quietly, found the lone empty seat opposite Sara. She looked at me once, her eyes narrowing, but didn't rise. My heart pounded as I set my USB and a neat packet of printouts before the chair. He cleared his throat. "Mr. Rowe, thank you for coming. We understand you wish to address the board." I nodded. "Yes." My voice was steady. "Thank you all for your time. I'll be brief." I connected the flash drive to the board's laptop. The projector lit the far wall. I handed the chair my transcripts. "You requested community concerns. Here are the facts." Slide by slide, the library board watched. October 12th, 11:42 p.m., text from Sara to Jacob, "Can't wait to see you after hours." Audio clip, Sara's quiet laughter captured under our bedroom mic. "Mark thinks I'm at the town hall. He's clueless." Photo, Sara and Jacob on the rooftop, timestamped October 29th. Email chain, Sara plotting to step down quietly after the show so nobody would guess. No gasps. No murmurs. Just stunned silence as the truth settled in their minds. Even Sara sat motionless, her lawyer's face drained of color. When the final slide faded, I closed the laptop. The chair cleared his throat again. He peered down at the transcripts. "This is comprehensive, Mr. Rowe." I stood. Everything here happened under the library's roof or pertains to your executive officer. I have no personal vendettas left, only your institution's integrity to protect. Sarah's lawyer spoke first. This evidence was obtained illegally. I cut her off gently. All recordings were made on public property or with devices my wife herself left unlocked. I see no policy broken. The chair exchanged glances with the grants officer. The trustees conferred quietly, reading emails I'd sent them 2 days earlier, laying out the same evidence. At last, the chair looked back at me. We'll take a brief recess. I waited in the hallway, listening to muffled voices. Minutes felt like miles. When they returned, the chair cleared his throat. Given the severity and breadth of these violations of trust, both personal and professional, we vote to terminate Sara Talbot's employment effective today. Any further public association with the library is rescinded. A hush fell. Sarah's eyes rimmed red. She rose, voice cracking, "Please, this is unfair. I've dedicated my life to this community." I felt no triumph. Only a quiet sorrow. But I had one last line. "I'm sorry, Sara, but honesty demands its due." With that, I slid out of the room. I didn't look back as the door clicked shut. Outside, the afternoon sun felt sharp on my face. My phone buzzed, messages of thanks from board members, a text from Lee, "You did what had to be done." I exhaled and walked to my truck. The town's lights glinted, oblivious to the personal courtroom drama above the library. That evening at Station 42, we fought a false alarm call, a burned-out wiring in an abandoned shed. I climbed the ladder, doused the smoldering wires with a steady stream. The hiss of water on sparks was a balm to my soul. As the siren quieted, I looked out across the bay. In my pocket lay the USB, its secrets played, its duty done. I was free of her lies, free of her shadow over our home and my life. And in that moment, I realized the truest revenge had come not from fire, but from unflinching truth. I drove to the storage unit on a gray Saturday morning. It sits behind a row of abandoned warehouses, the scent of salt and oil hanging in the air. Inside the dusty locker lay the boxes I'd stashed after the library board, hearing Sara's sweaters, her favorite novels, photo albums of our early days. I'd left them untouched, thinking I might need a final reminder of what was lost. Now, I knew it was time. I unlocked the door and flicked on the light. Cardboard towers leaned on concrete, one labeled books and papers, another photos, the last miscellaneous. I grabbed the top box, inside a thick stack of journal entries she'd written in my name, drafts of apologies she never sent. I stared at the top page, her neat script, "He'll forgive me, I can make him believe." My chest tightened. I slid that page into my pocket and lifted the box into my arms. Next, the photos, our wedding day, that first mountain hike, lazy July picnics. I dropped them into my trunk, each thud echoing like a closing chapter. The last box held her library key, her volunteer badge, the little crystal heart I once gave her on our anniversary. I held it in my palm, cold glass reflecting my face, and felt the weight of years lift. I drove towards Sunset Beach. The sky was steel, waves churning white foam. I parked at the dunes, carried the boxes onto damp sand. The wind beaten me with salt spray. I set them down, clicking open my pocket knife to slice the tape. I lit a small torch I'd brought, an olive-wood sage bundle, its smoke curling up like a prayer. I dropped the letter page in first, letting the smoke carry her final lie. Then I fed the notebooks, the albums, her key into the flame. They curled, blackened, and I watched the boxes smolder until only ash and warped metal remained. I stood there long after the fire died. The ocean's roar filled the silence. I turned my face to the wind and exhaled. No regret. No bitterness. Just the vast, open sky above a man who'd finally let go. Later that afternoon, I found myself at the newly reopened library, its front doors fresh painted, the closed signs taken down. A new interim librarian, Maya, greeted me with cautious eyes. I handed her a rolled-up poster, an announcement for a Stories of Renewal, reading-eyed, organized fire station volunteers sharing short tales of adversity and hope, hosted here next week. She unrolled it and smiled. "This is wonderful, Ethan. Thank you." I nodded. "We all need to reclaim our stories." That evening, back at Station 42, we set up folding chairs in the bay. The bay lights glowed overhead as volunteers and neighbors arrived, each clutching a short story or poem about a house fire, a lost pet, a marriage reborn. Maya brought coffee and tea. We called it Embers and Echoes. I kicked off the event with my own piece, a poem called Ash and Light. I didn't read the verse about Sara, but one line, "I built a flame from truth, not spite," hung in the air like embers. People nodded, some wiped their eyes. When I finished, Maya raised a toast to truth, to renewal, and to fresh starts. Glasses clinked in the open bay, the smell of oil and sweat mixing with warm coffee. Later, as we cleared chairs, a woman approached me. "Claire," she said, a local nurse. We'd met briefly years ago at a fundraiser. She had kind eyes and a steady calm. "I just wanted to say," she began, "what you did, putting stories into the world, that took real courage." Her words felt like sunlight through smoke. I realized then how far I'd come, able to accept kindness again. We talked about the reading, about small-town life, about waves crashing on the shore. When she left, she smiled. "I'll see you Wednesday for the next reading?" I nodded. "I'll be there." And for the first time since the Harvest Festival fallout, I looked forward to something that had nothing to do with revenge, just a shared story, a simple human connection. On the drive home, the sky turned coral with sunset. My trunk was empty of ashes. My heart felt open. I was no longer haunted by her lies or the shadows they cast. I was building a new chapter, one written in truth, in community, and maybe in unexpected friendship. And that, I realized, was the best kind of renewal. It's been a month since the first stories of renewal reading and 2 since I burned the last tokens of my old life on Sunset Beach. Since then, everything has shifted quietly, patiently, like moss growing in a rock crevice after the fire. Tonight, Claire and I arrive early at the library for our second reading. She's wearing her favorite navy coat, and I can't help but think how gentle her smile feels after all the harshness I've weathered. Maya has set up a string of fairy lights in the bay window, a promise, she says, that hope shines brightest in the dark. We're the last to sit. Volunteers are clustering around the folding chairs, clutching poems and stories like talismans. I feel the old itch how to begin. But Claire squeezes my hand and I realize I don't have to speak of the past tonight. This space is for what grows next. The session begins with a retired school custodian reading about the time he rescued a stranded seal from the tide pools. Then a high school senior describes finding her voice after a summer of campfires and shared songs. Each story is a spark and the room warms with their honesty. At last, Claire nudges me. My story is second to last. I rise, assemble my notes, just 1 page this time, and step before the audience. I clear my throat. When fire burns the old wood away, the ground beneath it opens. What's left is fertile. A pause. Eyes meet mine, all those faces I've served alongside in storms real and personal. I read ash and light one verse. From the embers of betrayal, green shoots still rise. Truth is the spark, forgiveness the soil. I don't name names. I don't need to. The room exhales with understanding. When I finish, they applaud softly, no pity, only solidarity. Afterward, Claire and I linger among the folding chairs. She rests her head on my shoulder. Your words brought a few of them to tears. I hug her. Thank you for believing in the next chapter. She lifts her gaze, eyes bright. I can't wait to see what you write next. The next morning, I find an email from a faculty colleague in a university library. She'd heard about the readings and asks if I'd consider submitting an essay to their new Community Voices anthology. I forward it to Maya and CC Claire. In the afternoon, I install new shelving brackets in the firehouse lounge, simple work, honest work. As I torque the bolts, I think of that anthology invite and smile. Maybe I will share my journey beyond dusty stacks and hearth fires. A week later, I open my mailbox to find a thin envelope, no return address. Inside, a single Polaroid, Sara standing in front of the Boulder Public Library holding a small, now hiring sign. She's alone, tears on her cheeks, phone in hand. On the back, in her looping script, I lost more than I realized. I fold it and slide it into the pant pocket of my station pants, not to burn, not to archive, just to remember how close I came to losing myself. I don't call her. I don't respond. I don't need to. That evening, as the sun dips behind the sound, Claire and I walk along the pier. Her hand finds mine. The lights of Seaview twinkle like campfires in the distance. She stops and looks out over the water. You ever think about what revenge costs you? I squeeze her hand. I thought about that a lot. But the cost of silence was losing who I was. Speaking the truth reclaimed me. She smiles, leaning into me. Then you paid the right price. Weeks turn into months. My essay makes it into the anthology. I read at packed events, not just in Seaview, but at college auditoriums up the coast. People approach me after, shaking my hand, saying things like, your story saved my marriage, or I left my toxic job because I saw myself in your words. Each connection reinforces what I already know. The sweetest revenge isn't watching them burn. It's living so fully they can only watch you flourish. One crisp spring morning, I drive past the library and see Maya unlocking the doors. The ivy on the facade is green and bright. I pause, put the truck in park, and lean out the window to wave. She waves back, and I sense that this place, once a battleground for my personal ruin, has become a cradle for community healing. I drive on towards Station 42, windows down, the pine-scented breeze rushing in. Behind me, Seaview wakes under the soft glow of day. Ahead of me, new chapters wait unwritten. As I pull into the firehouse yard, I reach for my helix tattoo over my heart, inked last summer, a simple spiral that, like me, keeps turning outward, always forward. And in that moment, I know the final line of my story, the one I'll carry forever. From truth's steady flame, I rise anew. The siren bell chiming in the station feels like an encore, not of past pain, but of a life fully reclaimed.
What do you think of the story? Write in the comments.